Welcome back, everybody, to Shoot to Shit. It's your boy Lou Nasty. Join with me today, the one and only Zach Gowen. Thanks for being here, bud.
You're welcome, John. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. So we'll get started.
How's your internet?
It's it's a joke to everybody. We tried this before, and it was horrible. So this is the second run at this. The internet looks like it's doing better. So we'll get into this right now. So quick little story on me. My introduction to pro wrestling, involved my father, and the monumental thing that happened with me is I was watching with my grandma, and she was one of those hardcore fans, old school. So I hated her some Ric Flair. So, one day she's out trash talking, Ric Flair, and if I can get in there, I'd beat these people's asses and stuff. And that sparked my love of, wanting to get in there and beat some asses. And I know you have a really interesting story about how you got into, professional. You watched it before, but the monumental thing that happened. And I'd like to get in what happened with that.
That was when the Royal Rumble 1990, the greatest Royal Rumble of all time, possibly the greatest WWE production of all time, cemented my love of professional wrestling, because 2 weeks before I had my entire left leg amputated to a battle with cancer, right, which saved my life, which I'm so incredibly grateful for. But the day they let me out of the hospital for the first time, minus a limb, my grandmother, as a welcome home gift, ordered me the 1992 Royal Rumble. And for those 3 hours, when I engaged in the magic of that production, I didn't feel the pain of battling cancer, of not having my leg. All of that went away. And that really started my passion and obsession with professional wrestling moving forward.
And so I was an indie guy for, give or take, about 5 years. Started in 2005 and ended around the 2010 time frame. I joined the Navy and, hung up the boots, as they say. And it was actually pure happenstance that got me training. I moved to San Angelo, Texas. My mom got married to an amazing man, and his nephew was actually getting trained to wrestle. So I met, two amazing gentlemen that beat me up, took me on the road, got me under their wing, and pretty much it was a handshake. Like, I didn't really have to pay anything. They just said, stick with us, and we got you. And I did. They were amazing guys, and I had a hell of a run. It was fun. I would like to know what got you training. Like, how did that come about? And how did you hear about the school?
Well, here's the thing about indie wrestling. So back in the day, 2000, 2001, here I am, the world's biggest wrestling fan. And I had no idea that this culture existed. I just happened to stumble upon it by accident when I went to my local mall in Livonia, Michigan, and in an old CS building, right, an old drugstore building that was abandoned, there was a professional wrestling show. There was a sign on the outside painted in terrible letters, probably misspelled, Pro Wrestling Today, right? And I looked at it, I'm like, what is this? I walk in, and I pay the money for the ticket. I sit down in the front row. I'm one of like 10 other people who were there to watch the show, mostly friends and family. And I was like blown away that a real live professional wrestling ring was in front of me. And there was real live professional wrestling happening in that ring. And they had a school. And for that I just decided right there, hey, listen, who do I have to talk to? What do I need to do? How much is it? Like, I need to get into that ring. I needed it more than I needed air to breathe. It felt like to me, and so that's how and I'm so lucky because I stumbled upon some really, really great training. I was trained by Truth Martini, who you may know from Ring of Honor, one of the best managers Ring of Honor has ever seen. But before he was a manager, he was a wrestler. and he was a fantastic wrestler and even better trainer. And so I was trained by the best Michigan has to offer, man. And from there, it was off to the races.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up with the indie stuff. It's a different vibe than professional. People are, you got your good and you got your bad. You got your people that are clawing, to get to that next level and bring that audience in. Then you got people that are just like, yeah, we're gonna throw this together. I loved the indie portion of all of that. The flyers, like you were saying, the random advertisements, and when I did it, maybe the same for you. MySpace was the thing. So a lot of our bookings and promotions and stuff were all MySpaces. So we would add ourselves to like a page, and people were all, hitting us up, and that was all the rage back in the early mid 2000s. And next, I don't
100%.
If I'm not mistaken, not sure a lot of people know this. You debuted in TNA before WWE. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So really quickly after I had my first match in March of 2002. And I think around the fall of 2002, I sent an email to Bill Behrens, and I said, "Hey, listen, Dick, this is, I'm looking for an opportunity for a dark match, because at that point, I never dreamed of becoming a WWE superstar. I didn't think it was possible, right? I was a huge fan of the X Division and Ring of Honor. So I love the smaller, high-flying. And I do a little bit of that, and I to the extent of that marketability. But so I sent Bill Behrens an email, and I said, "Hey, listen, if there's any opportunity, I'd love to go down to Nashville," because they were in Nashville at the time, and work a dark match. And emailed me right back, dude, and he goes, "Listen, man, we're booked up through May of next year. Like, this ain't, a couple of months. I'm sure we can work something out for you if you want to come down." So I said, "Thanks." And I go, "Oh, by the way, I sent you my tape as well, so you can see what I do in the ring." He goes, "Great, I'll watch it when it comes in. Thanks a lot." Just kind of brushes me off, right? Mm-hmm. 3 days later, he gives me a call, and he's like, "Hey, Zach, I'm in the office right now with Jerry Jarrett, and we're watching your tape, and we want you to come down next Wednesday. Can you make it?" I think I might have forgotten to mention the fact that I had one leg in my email to him or something, And so when he got the tape, I was so young and ignorant, like. And here's the thing about having one leg. I didn't realize the impact that my story could have on other people. And I didn't realize the significance of what I was doing in terms of someone with a disability, competing on that level in a professional wrestling ring. I had no idea. I just wanted to wrestle, I was very ignorant to the fact of the impact my story could have. So anyway, so I go down to TNA. I wrestled Truth Martini, my trainer, in the dark match. And they shut the match down 3 minutes in. Like, referee Scott Armstrong's like, "You guys got to take it home. You guys have to go home." And we're like, "Why? What's happening?" And then Scott Armstrong goes, "Because the pay-per-view is going to start after your match, and they're afraid they can't follow this." Because the crowd was going insane. It was the loudest reaction I've ever heard in my life. You have to understand, up until this point, I've had about 20 matches in front of an average of 20 people. And the audiences were very polite. But when you put me and my story, like, cold, unannounced, in front of 2,000 people, man, it was something else. I'd never experienced that kind of reaction in my life. And so they had to end the match early. My trainer was like, "Dude, this is something unique. Like, this doesn't happen, bro. Like, this is." They offered me a contract right there. I didn't sign it because I wanted a lawyer to look at it. But then they flew us down the following week to wrestle the same match, except this time they were going to put it on pay-per-view. So that was the plan going in. So me and Truth are sitting there, and then I don't know, I think Jeff Jarrett or Jerry Jarrett comes up to us and says, "Hey, listen, plans have changed. Zach, you're going to wrestle Road Dogg." And I'm sorry, Truth, there's nothing for you today, which kind of broke my heart because I wanted to get that shine too, man, to get that spotlight because we were going to rip it up and tear it down. But my debut actually happened in TNA February of 03, I think, and against the Road Dogg, which was just, you got to understand, my head was swimming. Like at that time, I had a job bagging groceries at Joe's Produce. Like I was the best bagger at Joe's Produce. That was my claim to fame. You know what I mean? Like that's what I held on to. I was like 18, 19 years old or something. And I had no idea to go from that to TNA. And then a few weeks later, WWE called me and said, "Hey, listen, we have a contract waiting for you. We'd love to showcase your story on WWE programming. Do you want to do it?" And I'm just, man, it was insane. It's hard for me to describe. It felt really like a dream that I was, living in, really.
Yeah, and your story, man, I'll go into it a little bit more later. It is inspiring. It is great because you getting that showcased and getting that reaction from a place that was booked way ahead of time. Like, hey, come in. We want to make this happen. And that just shows,
Right.
Not like I said, not just your skills and what you were learning and how you were trained, but what you can, give back to the audience. So if we could get into the WWE call and everything, how did that pitch come about for your first storyline with Mr. America?
Dude, it was like I said, it was fucking nuts, man. Like it was crazy. So I think I signed in February of 03. I debuted in May. I was convinced, and that I didn't go to OVW. I thought the whole process was you go down to Louisville, you work with those guys, and then maybe you get called up, and that's the normal process. And I just looked at myself as a normal wrestler, which was probably to my detriment to some level. But then they didn't call me down to OVW. Nobody called. They signed me to a contract. They sent me checks every single Monday, but then there was nothing. And so I'm trying to figure out what is happening. But then, so in my head, I'm convinced that WW, and I want to wrestle, brother. Like I literally debuted the year before. I'm 1 year in. All I want to do is get in the ring. And so I'm just going nuts because I'm trying to figure out what is happening. Nobody's talking to me. I'm convinced that WWE signed me at this point to keep me away from TNA, but they're not going to use me. And so I think that's what it is. So I'm like, am I just going to sit here for the next 3 years and collect a check? Which at 37 years old, I'd be happy if they did that to me now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, sign me up, brother. I don't have to do nothing. I'm good. But when I was 20 or 19 or 18, shoot, I don't even know. I was going nuts, man. I wanted to be in the ring. And so WWE Magazine called me up and they interviewed me and they did an article on me. So it came out in WWE Magazine, I think in May of 03. And I think that's what pushed creative to, one hand wasn't talking to another, right? And so they didn't want their audience to be introduced to me through the magazine. So I think they felt they had to put me on TV first before the magazine came out. And so they flew me to Stanford, and I got a tour of the offices, and I was just walking around with Tom Pritchard, and we were just hanging out, eating sushi, and just getting to know each other. And then I sat in in the writer's room, and I pitched ideas to them for me. And my main pitch was I wanted to come in and do a 1, 2, 3 kid story, right? Just come in super low key, like, oh, wow, you're the wrestler. He's got one leg, but, he's training and he's trying real hard and lose 1 week, lose the next week, lose the following week, but keep getting closer and closer and closer until finally maybe 6 weeks in, or, you can tell the story however you want. I get that win, right? And there's a moment, and then we can go from there. And everybody was on board, everyone's like, oh, that sounds, we can do that for sure. So then I fly home. And then when I land in Detroit, I have a voicemail from Bruce Pritchard. Bruce calls me up and he goes, Zach, we're going to have you debut next Tuesday on SmackDown. And we're going to do something with you and Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and Vince McMahon. I was like,
Yeah.
all right. What? That's not what we talked about. It's not what we agreed. That's not what I thought was going to happen. But it went from 0 to 100 just like that. And so that's how my debut came, where I was sitting in the audience as an audience member and Mr. America fan, and that's how they introduced me and put me in my first program in WWE was with Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, and Vince McMahon.
And I loved that segment. I know you probably talked about it a lot, but the part where Piper pulls the leg off and his face is just priceless. Like that's not an art anymore. Yeah.
Let me stop you right there, dude. This is I'm literally getting goosebumps thinking about it because of how talented Roddy Piper is. He is, and when it's like 17 years later, you have a different perspective, right? When you're in it, you kind of can't see the whole big picture. So this was such a huge risk by WWE to put a one-legged kid in the middle of a ring. Like, how is the audience going to react? Are they going to be grossed out? Are they going to be turned off? Are they going to tune out? Are they going to think it's dumb or over the top or stupid? You know what I'm saying? Like, I keep dropping my earpiece. Sorry. It was such a huge risk taken by them. And to put me in with those guys, those cultural legends, it's still kind of hard for me to believe. But Roddy Piper is so talented. He is the only one. Roddy Piper is the only one who could have pulled off that angle to get that reaction. And this is the one thing I remember what you're talking about is the face he makes after he rips off my prosthetic leg. And it's not you'll just have to YouTube and watch it just to see and then the crowd reaction, and he waits his patience, and then his expression, and then the close-up. It is nobody else in the wrestling business could have pulled that off to get where we wanted to get except Roddy Piper. And so that speaks to the enormous freaking talent that Roddy was, and the fact that I got to share that moment with him was absolutely mind-blowing. And it's something that I'm forever, ever, ever grateful for.
And I completely agree with how that played out. That's why I said it's a lost art.
And even I'm sorry to cut you off, John. You're getting me fired up, brother. But even Sean O'Hare, right? Because there's a moment where Roddy Piper rips it off, and he's like this, and it's not cheesy. It's like a genuine shock. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Exactly.
But then at one point he looks at Sean O'Hare, and then Sean looks at him, and then Sean goes, "Bro, that's too much for me," and he backs off. Like Sean doing that was huge too. Yeah. To get over the insane moment that's happening, because even Sean was like, "Bro, this is beyond me, man."
That's all you. That's all you. Yeah, and like I said, the crowd just like and Roddy Piper. And is it accurate that at first Roddy was pulling at the wrong leg?
You I didn't get the question, but are you talking about him pulling the wrong leg?
Yes.
Yeah, the wrong leg? Okay. Yes. Yeah, he did. It was so cool. So he starts yanking my real leg, right? And then pulling it really hard. And I'm like, Roddy, it's leg, other leg, he starts laughing. Like he's cracking up. He's like, I can't pull the kid's wrong leg. He puts his head down because he's laughing. And he's like, fucking wrestling business. And then he grabs the right leg and then he pulls it up,
Yeah. And that awesome. Just goes on how great he is, because you go from hiding your face laughing to that monumental moment of the face that we were just talking about. That's amazing.
Dude, Roddy's so perfect, man. He's missed dearly. So is Sean too. Man, but Roddy, in terms of a talent, one of the greatest of all time. Promos, his work, his ability to connect with the crowd. And he wasn't a super great wrestler or a super great athlete in the traditional sense. Mm-hmm. But he has so much abundance of talent in other areas that it more than made up for it.
And I don't know if this was a small part, maybe you missed, or maybe you don't remember, or maybe you do remember. I have seen that segment multiple times. Like I said, it was great. There was a part where as soon as you come in, you get speared, and does your head hit the chair? Yeah, your head hits the chair, right? And how was that? Was just adrenaline pumping? Because like I said, you fully remember, everything else about that, but that looked pretty rough. Like the whole segment.
Sean killed me on that. There's no. He just ran me over like a truck, dude. He was big as hell, man. People don't understand how big Sean O'Hare is.
Yeah.
Like 6'6". I mean, at this time too. I mean, he had to have been 280. Like he was a giant. I remember my first date. It was in the first Mariner Arena in Baltimore. This is where it happened. That segment we're talking about. I walk into the locker room and Sean is in his trunks and his boots and he's laying down and he's stretching. Right, his legs are kind of beat out and he's doing one of those toe touch stretches. And I'm looking at his back. That is the largest jig, right? And then smash cut to a couple hours later, he's running he's full of adrenaline too. He has one spot in the whole deal. Full spears me, bro. And I went flying across it's a 20-foot ring. My head bounces off the chair. I end up underneath the ropes.
Yeah.
He hit me in the center. I end up like over here, man. Like, no, he ran me over, but I didn't care, dude. Like you said, the adrenaline and the excitement of being there, like a real life truck could have hit me and I would have been all right,
Yeah. And it's crazy because, like I said, it was back in the day where, like I said, in the 2000s, they didn't take the precautions and stuff they do now. Two of your biggest, I feel, I could be wrong, but two of your biggest segments, like I said, was that hitting your head on the chair, and then the Brock Lesnar segment where he's wailing you with the chair. Like I said, back then, these shots were real. Yeah. Like your head just taking a punishment in your first big segments.
Right.
And
that was the it was crazy. That was one of the most violent WWE segments ever put on television. Me and Brock Lesnar. Certainly one of the bloodiest for sure. And that is something that will never ever happen. You'll never see that again on WWE.
For sure. Yeah.
But what was crazy about that was I was totally okay after that. Just like I was after Sean. I don't know. I must have had an angel, looking out for me that day or something. And it looked incredibly bloody, and it was bloody, and it looked incredibly violent, and it was violent. But Brock Lesnar, to his credit, took complete care of me in that segment. The scariest moment, it wasn't the F5s into the pole, and it wasn't the chair shots. The scariest moment in that match was when Brock double power bombs me, right? And it was supposed to be 3 power bombs, but the first one, I hit my head. And then I think he felt me kind of like I went out for a brief. Have you ever been knocked out for like a brief second? Yeah. I think he felt, even though the spot called for 3 power bombs, he felt that I was going to take care of me. And that's something that I can hug my kids at night. You know what I'm saying? Like because of that, and that's something I appreciate. Brock, his credit, took complete care of me. And he was the good people that I talked to the most in WWE. I love Brock because I felt that he was often misunderstood by the rest of the roster. You see what I'm saying? Brock Lesnar didn't grow up a wrestling fan. He didn't understand like the path that most wrestlers take and the sacrifice that it makes to get to that level. Because he's just an incredible natural, just an amazing athlete and hardcore, like trained, like he trains like a maniac, so he understands that sacrifice, but he doesn't understand the path of a wrestler. And so when he was there, he kept to himself and he was pleasant and he showed up on time, but he wasn't like, oh, hey, brother. And I think a lot of wrestlers push back against that. Like, oh, what is he, too stuck up? He's too good to come hang out with us and have some beer or whatever it was, that camaraderie that comes with the locker room. Sure. But to me, Brock was awesome, man. Like I respected the hell out of that guy, dude. He'd show up, he'd do his job, he'd be cordial, he'd say a few words, I'd say a few words, and then we'd go home. And I'm like, that's great. Like that's my type of dude,
Yeah. And so like you said, you didn't know what storylines that you were going to get into in the WWE. And I know you touched on it earlier about the contract in TNA on, you wanted lawyers and stuff to look at that. What was the big deciding factor in going with a WWE contract by TNA?
The reason I went with WWE was because of it's like, how do I put it? It's like, all right, this might sound bad. I don't know. But it's like you're courting a girl, right? Mm-hmm. And you guys are dating. You guys go on a few dates, and you think like there's some kind of relation. There might be a potential for a relationship here, okay? But then freaking the only supermodel I can think of is Cindy Crawford right now. Okay. I don't. I'm so old and outdated. It's not even funny. But let's say Cindy Crawford from 1996. Okay, let's say 96 Cindy Crawford comes and starts chatting you up and says, "Hey, I want to go out with you. I want to take for." As a young man, your attention is going to go to 1996 Cindy Crawford, if that makes any sense. You're going to see what that's about, because you never thought that was a possibility. You never thought that Cindy Crawford would ever talk to you. Yet all of a sudden she's coming up to you and she's brushing your shoulder and she's talking about how cute you are and how much fun you guys are going to have. And then so as a male, you're going to be like, oh, okay. Yeah, whatever you say. You know? So it was kind of like that, in which I didn't even know that WWE was a possibility until they called. And once they called, then my imagination starts going crazy. And I'm like, wow, think about the opportunity, think about the money, think about the exposure, think about the credibility, think about how many people I can reach. And it was just more attractive to me at that time.
Yeah, and it worked out. And that just makes plenty of sense, being, the young kid you were, and a lot of people are different on how they think. But I probably would have thought the same thing with, like I said, me growing up. Like I know during the Monday Night Wars, like, I tuned into WCW, but I was always a, WWE guy. Mm-hmm. So coming up, if I ever got that call, you're not thinking of being the talent to build a brand. You're thinking of going to what like I said, you're 92 Royal Rumble. Right. Like I can be in the same company, the same ring as
That's
this.
What I'm saying. Yeah. And I got to wrestle in the same arena, the Knickerbocker Arena. And dude, that wouldn't have happened in TNA. You know what I mean? We had a house show and it was renamed, but it was the Knickerbocker Arena where they had the 92 Royal Rumble. And I walk into the arena in Canyon, who was one of my best friends in the locker room. God rest his soul, man. He was like the most sweetest, genuine, like freaking awesome dude you'd ever meet, man. Like he was the best. He came up to me and he's like, Zach, do you know what arena we're in? Do you know what event was held here? And I'm like, dude, we're at the Knickerbocker Arena. He's like, yes, we're at the Knickerbocker Arena, man. We're like high five, like we're just marking out the fact that we could wrestle at the Knickerbocker Arena. But yeah, so to me, like, but if you ask me now, if WWE approached me now and said, hey, here's a 3-year contract and we want you on the road 4 to 5 days a week and we want you to do PR and all of that. And at this point in my life, and then if Impact was offering me a contract, right, offering what they had to offer, I would seriously look at Impact right now because I'm at a different stage in my life. You see what I'm saying? Like, and so, but when you're 19, 20 years old and you're full of testosterone and you're full of hope and wonder of what this world can be and what could actually happen, when WWE courts you, man, it's really a no-brainer.
Oh, yeah. And so you're talking about PR and everything. And I know post, WWE, post the Indian stuff, you do some motivational speaking. What got you into wanting to do that? And do you still do it, while doing indies, or is it one of those things where?
I'm sorry, John, you're breaking up. You're freezing up on me.
Oh, okay.
I heard motivational speaking.
Yeah. So you're talking about the doing PR earlier. Can you hear me now? Oh, we got that internet problem again.
After you said, do you hear me now? And I said yes, then I went completely blank.
Perfect. And we're good?
That works, right?
Yeah.
It's always, hey, can you hear me now? Oh, yeah, of course. And then we start talking and then there's nothing. Of course. It doesn't work any other way.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Let's try again.
Okay. So you're talking about WWPR earlier, and I know you said you just making sure we're still good. I know you do some motivational speaking. So what I was asking is, what got you into doing that? And was it one of those things where kind of like how Sting and DiBiase and everybody did that? Was it like a wrestling / motivational speaking thing, or did you do wrestling separate from motivational speaking?
Yeah. So what my main work, I work with students across the country, tens of thousands on a yearly basis, with the company that I work for. You're a parent, and you're looking for some different techniques and tools and ways to engage students, especially during the pandemic, especially during virtual learning. Hit up CoolSpeak, and I'd love to come work with you. We do professional development. We work with teachers. We work with parents. We work with students as well. That's my job. That's what I do. I don't. That's completely separate from what I do as a professional wrestler. However, how I got started is through wrestling. I was booked on a show in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. Like literally, the show was in the middle of a cornfield. It was at a middle school in the middle, surrounded by. I've never seen a middle school in a cornfield, for crying out loud, until I went to Iowa. Yeah, right. It was nuts. Children of the Corn stuff, man. And so that's where the wrestling show is being held, the indie show. But the promoter asked me to come in a day early to talk with the students to try to help boost ticket sales, right? So I'm like, sure. And he goes, all right, you're going to put on a 45-minute assembly all by yourself. And I go, what? Like, what? I don't know what to do. And he's like, oh, just talk to him. Tell him your story. Tell him about the show. I'm like, you want me to cut a 45-minute promo about the rest? He goes, no, just do like I don't know, like a motivational speaking thing. Like, you can do it. Follow your dream stuff. So I'm like, all right. So then I put on my best cardigan, and I did my worst impersonation of what a motivational. I was like Chris Farley out there, man, like in a van down by the river, like it was awful. But yeah. What happened was, in the middle of me giving this presentation, I had the same feeling come over me as I did when I first stepped foot inside of a professional wrestling ring, which was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, this is really cool. And so at that point, I decided, well, I want to do more of this, And so when I got home, I Googled youth motivational speakers, youth empowerment speakers. I got 30 emails from 30 different individuals who do this for a living. Because I'm like, man, if I can figure out a way to get paid doing this, like, that would be ideal, And so I emailed everybody. And that's the point. Like, people don't understand, like, you have, no matter where you're at in life, you have to like grind, and you have to try, and you have to reach out, and you have to ask questions, and you have to get rejected. And you're going to hear no so many times. And if you don't hear no enough, you're not doing it enough, period. So I emailed 30 speakers, and I said, hey, my name is Zach. This is my story. I have one leg. I had cancer. I wrestled. I went through an incredible dark and stormy period of my life with drug addiction, but I've overcome that, and I get to live a really amazing life, and I want to help kids. I want to share my story and help kids, right? And out of 30 emails, I got one reply. It's from who's now my boss now at CoolSpeak, and CoolSpeak is and have really exposed me to that business, the speaking business, and I've grown, as a speaker since coming in contact with them. And now, like I said, it's my job, and I get to, not only that, but I get to make more of an impact sharing my story, virtually or in person with students, than I would by just entertaining by wrestling, using my words, using my story, making more of an impact, man. And like, what more can you ask for than that?
Yeah. And post WWE, this is weird transition. This is just something I thought was cool. So you did a cameo for us, and we're forever grateful. It was good. We also asked.
You guys are my second cameo ever.
Really?
My second cameo. What? Yeah.
Oh,
I just signed up that day. I signed up that day, and then I put it out, and then you all were my second cameo. So I love the Walmarts, man.
Yeah, we when I saw it, I saw Zach Gowen, and like I said, the first thing I thought of was Roddy Piper. I was like, oh man, this is
Yeah.
awesome. That'd be great. Another cameo that we got was of Jimmy Jacobs, and
Oh
so
wow.
I know you guys have a history there. So I was wondering, do you have any good Jimmy Jacobs stories for the wall markers? Because
Um,
that cameo hasn't been posted yet. So I just would think it'd be cool to have yours, and then his.
not that I yeah, I know that I could tell that would not get us arrested. You know what I mean? If in case the feds are watching, man, that's one of my best friends in wrestling, dude. I understand that if Mike one more time, I swear to God, you got to understand that me and Jimmy are like we've been best friends for I don't know close to 15 years at this point, man. We're both from Michigan. We used to live together. We used to travel uh, and to see his path, his journey is a guy. And people look at me and they're like, "Oh, Zach, you're mistaken. You go out and be a wrestler, tall, balanced. I have a certain charisma that's I'm able to, and I have a certain intelligence and understanding of what the wrestling business is. These are all attributes that help me, and I have a marketable gimmick as well. So these are all attributes that help. Jimmy has none of those. Jimmy, and I'm not trying to bury Jimmy, all right, but he is 5'5". Okay, he weighs 165 pounds. He has very little slow twitch muscle fibers, and I know it sounds like I'm burying Jimmy. I know, but I'm trying to bury him to put him over, which is to see him reach his level of success. Starting in like IWA Mid South, and then going to Ring of Honor, and then flourishing in Ring of Honor, and then getting a job with WWE, and now with Impact, and using his mind. And here's a guy who was voted probably the most likely to not make it in professional wrestling. To see his career path and his success, to me, is completely inspiring, considering how little he has to work with. It sounds terrible. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Jimmy. I don't mean to bury you, brother. You know I love you, man. And he knows I say worse to his face every time I
Yeah.
see him. But no, I love Jimmy so much, man, and I'm so happy that he's doing well, and I know he's happy for me that I'm doing well, and it's been a crazy. You could make a documentary about our relationship. You know what I'm saying? Starting from where it was, what happened, and what it's like now. But man, I love that guy so much. That's a good cameo to get from.
Yeah. Well, I would love to see if you guys were to do something like that in the future. That'd be great. I met Jimmy on a couple of occasions way back when, and the funniest interaction. I don't know what it was of that day, but it was a show in San Antonio, promotion called Anarchy Championship Wrestling out in San
Yeah.
Antonio. They're now based out of Austin, but he was on the kick where the locker room was a bunch of young guys, and you had your veterans there. I think Jerry Lynn might have been there at the time, but he was so pissed that
Oh man.
70% of the roster didn't know the names of the Fabulous Freebirds. He's like, how you guys gonna be in this business don't even know the Fabulous Freebirds, and it was just
I'm surprised Jimmy hasn't gotten his ass beat more than he has. With how he used to run his mouth,
yeah.
He came into a locker room once in the Detroit area, and it was his first time working for the promotion.
Mhm.
And he walked in, literally, it was this big, right?
Yeah.
He walks in, chest out to here, grabs somebody's chair that was already had a bag in front of it, plants it down in the middle of the locker room, throws his bags down, sits in the chair, crosses his legs and crosses his arms and looks around, waiting for someone to say something to him. Like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah,
Hey, but listen, we all have a past. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's
yeah.
the cool thing is that, like, just because of where we're at now doesn't mean we have to be that way tomorrow. And
Yeah.
to me, there's no other better example of that than Jimmy Jacobs.
Well, I don't think anybody who seen somebody bloodied up and start eating their blood and having the blood dripping on you and stuff are gonna fuck with Jimmy Jacobs. You come in, you do whatever you want. I'm not trying to be on the opposite end of you. Great guy though.
Leave it to me. I'll beat his ass next time I see him.
I don't believe it. Um, yeah, and like I said, that was part of the post, WWE run on the Indies, and you're talking about, a different time frame that you were in. How were the Indies post WWE, vice, pre WWE, and like TNA and all that?
Well, it was a lot different because now I was going back to the Indies as someone who had a name value and someone who people knew, or audiences knew. And so for me, it was really weird because so I got fired in '04, and then I got sober in 2010. So there's like this weird 6-year gap of me like putting my drug use and my alcoholism as a priority over wrestling. And so for a lot of that time, I would just show and soul and my passion for wrestling took a back seat to the drug addiction and the alcoholism, and that makes me really, really sad because there were so many opportunities that I missed. There were so many opportunities that I wasn't able to be fully present for, and there's like I burned a lot of bridges too. And I'm not professional bridges, whether it was in TNA or All Japan or Germany or Mexico, and it doesn't make me sad that I missed out on like opportunities or money. What makes me sad is that they gave me an opportunity, and then in return, I didn't give them a return on their investment. And because I got an opportunity, that means some other wrestler didn't get the opportunity. And so that's like, it's kind of heartbreaking to think about it like that. But now that makes me ever so more so grateful of the opportunities that I get. And no matter what show that I'm on or what seminar that I'm putting on, or even what school that I go to give a motivational assembly or something, makes me even that much more grateful that I get a second chance. And so that puts, I make sure I put everything into whatever's in front of me, whatever I'm doing, because I understand how precious these opportunities are and how quickly they can be gone tomorrow. And so all in all, it's made me a much better wrestler, or much better person, I should say. But the indie wrestling scene is so much different now because it's blown up. Back in my day, 2001, like I said, I was the world's biggest wrestling fan, and there was wrestling shows 2 miles from my house, and I had no idea. Now everybody knows through social media. Hey, this is the wrestler show's coming. We're able to reach a much bigger audience, and I think the business has never been healthier. There's always booms in the wrestling business when technology shifts. You see what I'm saying? So in the 50s, when television became popular in everybody's house, wrestling was huge, right? Gorgeous George, and it was on everybody, And then in the 80s, when pay-per-view became a huge thing, that's when Hulk Hogan blew up, and Hulk Hogan was the pay-per-view, WWF went to that pay-per-view model. And then once cable television rolled out and everybody had a cable TV, and then now when you have the switch to an all digital platform, on demand, all of that, and now we're seeing another boom. Obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic, but before that, we see a huge boom in the business. A rising tide raises all ships or something, and now because we have the reach, we're able to reach so many more fans, and I think that's for the benefit of everybody involved in wrestling.
Oh yeah, and I love where pro wrestling is now, with, like you said, with social media and the advertisements and everything. Because random fun fact: so I'm in New Orleans now, but right before here, out of all places, I was stationed in Vermont. So I was in Vermont, man. And I hated it. Like, I thought their state slogan should be like, Vermont, people live here, and like it was just so remote. It was terrible. And when I met my wife and we started going out and doing some stuff, like she introduced me to like the Facebook events. Like, well, let's see what's around here. And then she's scrolling through. It's like, oh, there's a pro wrestling show, whatever. And I look at it. I was like, oh, cool. That's like 30 minutes away. We get to that one, and then all of a sudden, we joined that group, and then there's all this other stuff, and there happened to be a trading card store that was, like I said, literally like 35 minutes away from us, that brought in WWE legends and Hall of Famers like once a month, and they were coming in. I was like, man, where was this like a year ago? I was like, I hated this place, and then I started enjoying it a lot more. But yeah, like you were saying, with social media, like you just put an event on there and you can find it, what's on near you, and it's just amazing. You know, I love professional wrestling, as you know, because of the page. But man, I'm a indie mark, man. I love seeing the hunger in some of these people, and
For sure.
seeing where some of these guys are before they get signed, because wrestling is
No,
huge in that New England area.
I've always had more fun at an indie show as a fan than at a WWE show.
Yeah, and it's a little more different, because me, I feel like I made a pretty healthy transition from being in the business and everything, and going back to being just a fan. Because a lot of people are gonna be pretty bitter, like, oh, I did this, or this guy isn't, he ain't shit, or whatever the case is. Where me, I'm just, man, I'm loving it. So I love, the interaction that I get with, some of the talent at these indie shows, because you get heckled, but like when it's all in good fun and you get that interaction, man, it's a fun experience, and everyone else gets into it. It's a good time. So I think I might have been cut off again. I'll give it a couple seconds.
All right.
Because what I was going to transition into is, I know you and I talked about it briefly before we went on, that I got stood up by my dates to help interview you. So we got some questions that came in. The first one,
let's hear it,
was that they said ask about. So have you ever been approached, or would you take the nomination to get a Warrior Recipient Award at the WWE Hall of Fame?
I already have the speech written.
Yeah. It would make sense.
Never reached out to me. I've thought about it. What would that be like? And I literally thought about what words I would say to that not only WWE has given me, and what WWE has meant to me in my life, but the platform of connecting with so many people and everything else that they do, that they do, But yeah, so I haven't been approached. I'd love to do it, and I would deliver the best speech the Hall of Fame has ever seen, man. that's a tough thing to say, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, come on, man. Those other Warrior recipients don't have motivational speaking background, and just kidding.
Man, I would just bare my soul, brother, and that's the best speech you can make is when you bare your soul, and heart, that's what reaches the heart, And so that would be my goal if I ever got that award, was to go up there and just speak the truth and bare my soul.
Yeah, it would be awesome to see it. Another question was, even though your story being told was amazing and how it was brought to the screen, do you think that storyline would have translated better in this day and age than back in the Ruthless Aggression era?
I do, yeah. Because you have the audience now is a lot more woke, just like society is, And so I think, plus you have to factor in, nobody knew what the hell they were doing, right? Mm-hmm. So I was a year in, not really understanding what I had, and WWE didn't really know what I had either. So we're both trying to figure it out in real time. But if you take my experience now and you take the audience, their temperament and where they're at now, and then we combine that together, man, we would create like incredible magic for sure. But again, there's no regrets, because that happened and that put me on the path, which leads me to where I'm at now, which is amazing. So, but yeah, I definitely think it would be better now than it was in 2003.
Yeah, because like the era says, man, it was ruthless.
Right.
And with one of the admin of the page, Jewbag, he's got this. So it's a two-part question. He says, one of the things that stands out in this memory of your time with WWE is the unbelievable beating and eventual trip down the staircase. And his question was, how was that idea pitched? And was Brock professional, or did he take any liberties?
Yeah, I already covered that. Brock was super professional with me, 100%. The original idea was for, do you remember the SmackDown fist that would come out of the stage?
Yeah.
The original idea was for Brock Lesnar to F5 me off the fist through the stage, which I was like, yes, like how cool would this be, right? But then we go to do it. We couldn't logistically figure out how we would get up there. Like, how could we tell the story? Like, how could we make that believable? That Brock and Zach are on top of the fist, you know? And so that got switched to the chair. And what was great about it was that a stunt double took the fall for me.
Okay.
This dude looked, it was really kind of strange how much he looked like me. And he had two legs, but he was a professional stunt double, and he's the one who took the fall for me. And everybody thinks that I took the fall, and it was really gross. And it's like, it wasn't just a normal staircase, like it was double, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like cement stairs in the back of an arena. And the guy just boom, 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 boom. And then the chair is coming down after him.
Yeah.
You know, and he's just, it was like, he's like, yeah, that. I'm like.
And man, the F5 off of the fist is something that you would get out of the video game.
That's what I'm talking about, man. And that's why I was so excited, because I love all those Shane McMahon bumps he used to take, you know, off the sets and all of that. And we were going to set something up like that. You know, I wanted to have, or, you know, Jeff Hardy Swanton off freaking double ladders and all that. And I wanted to have that type of moment, but we couldn't figure out how would Brock and Zach be up there. That was the question we couldn't answer.
I would have just been like, Brock's a beast. He carried me in the chair to the top of the set.
Or he just picked me up and threw me to the fist.
So the final part of Jubag's question, he just wanted to say that that he's always been a big fan, and he always appreciated your heart, grit, and showing what a one-legged man can do in an ass-kicking contest. So that was, you know, the signature.
Breaking barriers, man.
Yeah, that's a signature from Jubag. So you touched on how much Brock took care of you. So during your time, was there anybody who surprised you with taking liberties, or was there somebody that surprised you with how, you know, light that they worked or how professional they were, like a Brock type?
Yeah, no, everybody was, and what's crazy is that they were so much bigger than I was too. Like, these dudes were monsters. And they could have all killed me in just a second, but dude, there was not one instance of like someone potatoing me, or if they did, it was an accident. Immediately apologized. Nobody took liberties on me at all. Everybody's there because what would be the point? You know, then you get a reputation of someone who's dangerous. Somebody took liberties, and then you got to deal with the office. And hey, man, we're all there just to do our job, keep it professional, and then go home. Collect our paychecks and keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? So, so that might have been like a thing back in the 80s or something, where like guys, you know, and then listen, the talent had their disagreements, and some people didn't get along with other people, and that was fine. But when it came to the ring, like professionally, that was kept completely separate from any sort of personal stuff. So no, everybody took care of me, and everybody was, you know, they're the best in the world, you know, like it's WWE, man.
Yeah. And so I guess the last question here that I've gotten for you before we take it home, if you will, let's get that up. Yeah, it might be my internet. It's not coming up. Yeah, well, it's just not coming up. Yeah. So, come on, please. Well, I'll break the awkwardness. I'll just, I guess, kind of ask you offline then later on in life. So,
sure.
Like I said, before we wrap it up, I just wanted to let everybody know that, like, with the Walmart giveaways, that we already have October's done, but with November, graciously, Zach here is we're gonna send some autographed merch.
Right?
Yes, we are. We're gonna have that signed, and Walmart is going to pay for a personalized cameo from Zach Gowen. So you're gonna get an autograph, and you're gonna get a personalized cameo. It's gonna be amazing. Uh, but
100%.
so welcome. I mean, welcome. Thank you once again for tuning in, Zach. Thank you for being here, brother.
Hey, John, you know, doing your part in keeping the wrestling community alive and thriving in such a weird time, man. And I'll hashtag into this. It sounds professional. I'm only here today because of professional wrestling. I love wrestling. I know you do too. It's obvious. You can feel the passion. You see what I'm saying? And so thank you for sharing that passion and that love with your community and the Walmart We Love Wrestling community. Thanks for having me on, man. It means the world.
Yeah, so we're gonna tag you on everything. Like I said, let's do this again, man. I appreciate you.
100%.